On paper, the 1991 Peugeot 905 EV1 should have dominated. It featured a Todt carbon fiber monocoque, an 80-degree naturally aspirated V10, and a drag coefficient built for raw top speed. In reality, it had three fatal design flaws: zero front-end downforce, catastrophic thermal choking inside the side pods, and extreme high-frequency engine vibrations that tore the gearbox apart. To fix it, Peugeot brought in F1 aerodynamicists, deleted the car's bodywork, raised the nose, and completely re-engineered the valve train. Today, we break down the brutal lessons learned and the exact engineering transformations that turned the 905 into the ultimate Group C weapon. Welcome to VRD History, where we dive into the research and development that defined the icons of motorsport. In late 1988, Jean-Marie Balestre and the FIA executed a regulatory revolution. They effectively outlawed the legendary high-torque, turbocharged monsters and massive fuel-restricted rotary engines of Group C, forcing manufacturers toward a new paradigm: 3.5-litre naturally aspirated engines matching contemporary Formula One specifications. Peugeot Talbot Sport, led by the ruthlessly calculating John Todt, jumped at the mandate. Fresh off back-to-back Group B World Rally Championships and Dakar-dominant runs with the 205 T16 and 405 T16, Todt wanted to win Le Mans. He assigned the engineering direction to chief designer André de Courtanza. Together, they entered completely uncharted territory. Up to this point, Peugeot's technical domain was turbocharged all-wheel drive gravel weapons. They had zero experience with long-distance, high-downforce circuit aerodynamics or ultra-high-revving short-stroke circuit V10s. To bridge the gap, Courtanza made a radical move. He outsourced the chassis construction to aerospace giant Dassault Aviation. The result was a carbon fiber composite monocoque built with aircraft precision, mated to a brand new 80-degree naturally aspirated 3.5-litre V10, designated the SA35/A1. On paper, the Peugeot 905 EV1 was a futuristic masterpiece. On track in 1990 and early 1991, it was an engineering nightmare. When the 905 EV1 debuted, its fundamental flaws stemmed from a single core issue. It was designed like a modified road car prototype rather than a pure ground effect racing machine. Courtanza originally opted for a sleek, streamlined body with styling cues mirroring Peugeot's production cars, including a smooth front end, narrow splitter, integrated headlights, and rear wheel spats. The aerodynamic philosophy relied heavily on low drag for top speed efficiency down the Mulsanne straight. However, this produced two catastrophic side effects. The first, severe lack of front-end downforce. The front air intake design failed to feed sufficient air beneath the floor, creating chronic entry phase understeer. The second, unstable center of pressure. Under heavy braking, the aerodynamic balance shifted wildly forward, unsettling the rear axle and causing severe high-speed instability. While the car was reasonably quick on fast, flat straights, it was hopelessly outclassed in cornering speed by Ross Brawn's radical Jaguar XJR 14, a car that was essentially an F1 chassis wrapped in a prototype body. The SA35/A1 V10 was capable of spinning to 12,500 revolutions per minute, producing roughly 650 horsepower. But building an F1 spec motor that could survive a 24-hour endurance cycle was a harsh lesson for Todt's team. Cooling inefficiencies. To keep the body clean, the initial radiator ducting inside the side pods was undersized. Thermal buildup choked oil and coolant temperatures, triggering premature engine degradation. Transmission shear. The 6-speed transverse manual gearbox struggled with the harsh high-frequency torsional vibrations of the 80-degree V10 layout. Carbon clutch wear was excessive, and gear selector linkages frequently bound under chassis flex. The disaster culminated at the 1991 24 Hours of Le Mans. Both factory 905s retired before the 4-hour mark. One due to engine valve failure, the other due to transmission disintegration. Todt knew the base concept was dead in the water. The failure of the 905 EV1 forced Jean Todt and André de Courtanza to re-evaluate their entire methodology. They learned 3 critical technical lessons in this transition from rally raid to elite circuit endurance. 1. Downforce over drag. In modern prototype racing, cornering velocity and tire energy management compound into drastically faster lap times than raw top speed slipperiness. 2. Component isolation. An ultra-lightweight F1-derived engine cannot act purely as a stress-bearing chassis member without dampening high-frequency vibrations that destroy auxiliary systems, fuel pumps, alternators, and gear selectors. 3. Aerodynamic adaptability. A single static aero package cannot dominate both high downforce sprint tracks like the Nuremberg Ring or Magny-Cours and low drag endurance circuits like Le Mans. To fix this, Peugeot brought in aerodynamicist Enrique Scalabroni, fresh from Williams and Ferrari F1, to work alongside de Courtanza on a total redesign. Introduced late in the 1991 season and fully optimized for 1992, the Peugeot 905 Evo 1B, also known as the Evo 1 BIS, carried over virtually nothing from the original car except the central tub cockpit section. It was no longer a stylized sports prototype. It was an open front twin-wing downforce weapon. If you look at the specs on screen, you can see how radically Peugeot transformed the 905 between 1991 and 1992 by ditching the rear wheel skirts, completely redesigning the front and rear aero, and pushing that V10 up to 715 horsepower. All while dropping 30 kilograms, they turned a promising car into a dominant Le Mans winning machine. Scalabroni and Courtanza completely discarded the production car aesthetic. The high front wing. The front end was carved open, featuring a full-width raised front wing and aggressive splitter. Air was now forced directly under the nose, feeding massive venturi channels underneath the floor to lock down the front axle. The biplane rear wing. At the rear, Peugeot introduced a massive double-deck rear wing setup. For sprint configurations, an upper element added huge downforce. For Le Mans, a modified low-drag variation was used to preserve top-end speed on the Mulsanne. Wheel skirt deletion. The sleek rear wheel covers were slashed, allowing turbulent high-pressure air trapped inside the wheel wells to bleed out, drastically reducing lift and improving brake cooling airflow. Under the rear engine cover, Peugeot introduced the upgraded SA35/A2 V10 engine. Power output pushed out to push 715 plus horsepower at nearly 13,000 revolutions per minute. Pneumatic valve upgrades. Redesigned valve train architecture prevented valve float at extreme revs over prolonged 24-hour periods. Electronics and fuel management. Magneti Marelli engine management systems were reprogrammed with adaptive fuel mapping, softening power delivery out of slow corners to preserve rear tires without losing top-end thrust. To withstand the immense aerodynamic loads generated by the new aero package, which now exceeded the weight of the car at high speeds, the suspension was also overhauled. Pushrod geometry. Heavy-duty pushrod-operated double wishbones with revised rocker pickup points were installed to control pitch under extreme downforce. Braking system. Upgraded. Thicker carbon-vented brake discs with dedicated high-flow carbon cooling ducts to withstand deceleration from 350 plus kilometers per hour. Gearbox housing. The 6-speed sequential transmission received a reinforced magnesium-aluminium alloy casing, dramatically cutting casing flex under torque load. Relentlessly mutating the package until it stands invincible. But as Peugeot stood atop the world, the ground beneath them was fracturing. The demise of the World Sports Car Championship left top-flight endurance racing on the brink of collapse. Motorsport was in crisis, and to survive, the sport had to tear up the rulebook. Out of the ashes rose a wild, unregulated new frontier, the GT1 category. Gone were the pure alien prototypes. In their place came a chaotic battlefield of homologated road monsters and million-dollar supercars battling for total dominance.